Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Align, where we help you align with your true self, others, and your desired outcome to live your best life. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I never thought I needed it until I met these amazing women and human beings and goddesses that I realized, wow, there's a part of me that I've always kind of shameful of or hidden from the world. And I feel like a lot of women, as well as men, can resonate with that. And that is the divine feminine. And so, how this came about, I met these two lovely women, Moon, you prefer Moon, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Moon and Chelsea, we met in a lovely retreat in Ibiza. Backstory there is I was invited by another amazing goddess woman who I knew her, trusted her a lot, and knew one other person going on this retreat of like, what, 60 people, ladies? Was that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about
I had no idea what was going to be like, and literally just signed up. Everything kind of worked out. Like my plans kind of fell through during the. I had other plans during that week that fell through. That I'm like, there's no reason why I shouldn't go to Ibiza when the borders finally opened. So I went, and on the plane ride over, the agenda is sent to everybody, like literally as I onboard on a plane to Ibiza, and it is literally Burning Man style, Burning Man clothing. And if those of you who know me and those that don't, like, I am not the most open person when it comes to my personal life. Like, I don't do any type of drugs. Like, I'm very kind of like you're straight laced. So I was kind of worried, like, what did I sign myself up for? And I had all these preconceived notions of what Burning Man is, right? Never been there, just see the sensational ones, see the party kids. Obviously, it was totally wrong. Like, they're true OG burners, are super spiritual people, successful, talented, there to come up with cool companies, come up with the solutions for the world. And I met these two amazing women where I felt like when I met them in their presence, even the way they sit, like, guys, just look at them. They're just like majestic. It's like I don't even know how they do it. And whenever they dance or they sing, it's like some force goes through them. And they kept talking about this thing called divine feminine. And it finally resonated with me. And I felt like a lot of us can benefit from this. So, ladies, tell me and tell us, what is divine feminine? Let's start.
Mhm. Thank you so much for that introduction, Jessica. And it's amazing again. It's been quite a ride here in Ibiza and so good to reconnect. Um, as far as divine feminine, it's an infinite topic when you're starting to tap into the cosmic nature of reality. And to try to encapsulate it, it's basically everything that's manifests in the world without getting too esoteric. It's life force, it's creation, it's cycles, it's rhythms, it's flow, it's both a creative and a destructive force in perfect balance. And the earth, for example, is a really beautiful symbol and example of that in creation, because you have all these massive cycles of creation and destruction, and just everything staying in perfect balance. So
Balance.
just as a little starter, I would pass it to Moon if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that like the cycles, the water cycles, the moon cycles, really for me, the divine feminine, I feel like that archetypal feeling of the mother, of the sister, of the giver, of the nurturer, and like as Chelsea put so well, the earth, and how the earth feeds us and nurtures us and provides us with everything that we need in balance. The divine feminine is the missing link to union, and the divine masculine, and the masculine is very present on this planet. And so there is this spirit within all of us here that is waking up, whatever like spectrum or gendered body you hold. A divine feminine, just like the divine masculine, is a presence within each of us that we all get to awaken and hold. And when both of them inside ourselves are awakened and enlivened, we're like being the God self.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. So, Moon, you did request, and it's my bad because I'm still a newbie to all this stuff. You did want to open with a prayer. So before we dive deeper, do you want to go ahead and give a prayer before we go forth? Happy to take a moment. Sorry, I
Yeah,
like
I would
jumped into it. Like define masculine is always like go, 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 right? So we're learning.
you. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, just opening with a prayer, which is just a request and a calling for openness, for the ability of the divine feminine to flow through our bodies and our voice boxes and the conversation we're having, that all things of spirit of the heaven can come down and we can use our word as a bridge to communicate what needs to be communicated right now from the etheric realms, from the ethers, the mysteries that kind of pour through, just calling in a sacred container for the highest light and the highest frequencies. May all of the conversations we speak of and the words that we speak resonate, and whatever doesn't resonate, allow it to fall away, and just opening up this beautiful, Trinity portal between three goddesses, which is what opens a portal, and acknowledging the space right now and you for creating this. So thank you, Jessica, for facilitating spirit so beautifully, and welcome everyone to this podcast. And thank you to Chelsea, my beautiful goddess sister, and cheers. Aho.
Cheers, ladies. I love that because, and the reason I really wanted you to do the prayer is because, again, as someone, I consider myself an earthling, right? I'm still very new to this whole spirituality element of things. And even though I think it's within me, embracing and owning it is still quite new, right? So I think for me, when people say prayer, it's like, oh, it's religion, it's something tied to, but I want everyone to see like a prayer could be something as simple as an intention, right? It's just you speaking your intention. That's a prayer. It doesn't have to be, it's not as woo-woo as sometimes we think of it to be. So thank you so much, Moon, for kind of opening with that. And like, I just wanted to dispel a lot of myths of what people think, like define feminine, define masculine is. So you made some good points early before, right? Like define feminine is the missing link or the balance to define masculine, which we see a lot of right now on planet Earth. So some things that come to mind when I hear of defined masculine is like competition, war, right? A zero-sum game. That's a new term that I kind of thought about. I was like, yeah, sometimes it's a quite masculine energy, right? Doing, high charging, action, much more action oriented. Any other things that you see, like a patriarch society, right? Like any other things that you see would like in our world right now that is quite masculine that you guys want to, just so people can anchor and better understand like what is masculine, what is feminine energy?
Yeah. To begin, I'll say that divine masculine is the most beautiful thing I've ever beheld. And a lot of, what we're speaking on right now is the unbalanced masculine. The things that you're listing off is the unbalanced masculine. What we're calling forth is the divine masculine. And, unbalanced looks like, non-reciprocal. It looks like control, maybe hard versus soft, tight versus open, rigid versus flow. For me, it certainly does feel like violence. And a lot of it is, when you think of the archetypal mother and the archetypal father, and the Holy Mother and the Holy Father, and then your personal life experience with your mother and your father, and our associations to the masculine, like the experiences we've all had with men, the experiences we had with our brothers. Are they things that are nurturing and uplifting us, or are they things that make us feel non-liberated? So I feel like days of humanity where the goddess is rising, and when people say the goddess is rising, we're meaning like the feeling of freedom and liberty within our voices and our bodies that is wanting to come out like this bursting fruit and bloom. And so I think things that make you feel liberated and make you feel free and free to share, those are divine, whether it's divine masculine or divine feminine. But I think a good litmus test for spaces, if you're in spaces and you want to know if the divine feminine is present and allowed and embodied there, it's tuning into everyone's voices. Does everyone have a voice in that space? Do the children have a space? Do the children have space to speak and be? Do the women? And we're on our way to desiring to create a society where all children, elders, women are all equal and our voices are able to be shared.
Beautiful.
And beautiful way of describing it. Chelsea, if you want to add to that, you corrected me, which you're 100% right? I think oftentimes people would think, oh, masculine is not the aggressor, right? But that's, to your point, it is the unbalanced masculine, right? So Chelsea, what is a balanced masculine? Why is that important? And then talk to us about the importance of putting a balanced masculine energy with a balanced feminine energy.
Very good question. Yeah, so to counter the unbalanced masculine, where you might have, say, an aggressor archetype or somebody who's instigating war, violence, crime, any of these things that have been stressors on society, you have the other edge of that sword where it's still very potent. It's still very energetically erect, you could say. It's still very focused and aligned and forward electric momentum, but with the protectorship archetype, with the sacred warrior rather than the aggressor warrior. Yeah, the defender of women, children, the earth, all animals and plants, and this beautiful floating blue jewel in totality, and as well expanding out into the rest of the galaxy and the universe as some of these unbalanced masculines currently on the planet are already continuing the patterns that we've had here with the imbalance, and now they're taking it out and seeking to terraform other worlds, even beyond our own. It's so important that we have this sacred masculine return to defend, to not be passive, but to really embody power and leadership, focus and drive, but in a sustainable way. Like, how do we protect and sustain life being a symbol of the divine feminine, life force, sensual, creative energies, sexual energies, nurturing energies, and all of the above that goes into the divine feminine. So, whether or not that looks like men, still being in politics or still being in community building roles, but just truly integrated and aligned with who are they serving? What are they really serving? And ideally that would be, balancing the Tao of masculine and feminine in perfect sense.
When you speak, the two things that come to mind to me of a divine feminine figure is I feel safe and I feel like I trust this person, right? Would you say, like, though, as a woman, like when you're in a presence of a man that has defined masculine energy, even a woman, right? Because it's fluid, it doesn't matter. But if you have this defined masculine energy, it's a feeling of safety and trust and ease. Would you say those are kind of good signs that, like, hey, maybe you are in a safe space of defined masculine?
Absolutely. And that's something that sometimes we see as men or even young boys are transitioning out of this more toxic masculine and this unbalanced masculine. Sometimes they forego the potency and, you can say, erect energy, energetically speaking, in their embodiment and in their actions, and they become very in love with embodying the divine feminine only in celebration of it, but then they lose as well their edge and their potency and their directive and their electric charge and fire. And to truly serve and worship the divine feminine in themselves and in all women and in the earth, we need this divine masculine presence in order to protect and serve and balance. And just like you said, safety is somatically felt in the body.
Yeah.
It's deeper than the mind. We can feel
Yeah.
being contain the potency, the charge, the electric nature to carry those things out, to be a defender, to provide whatever that means, what depending on their role in their archetype society, whether it's as a father, whether it's as a political leader. Like, are they truly here to get shit done, but from a holy and integrated way?
Yeah. One thing I always tell a lot of my life coaching clients, especially on the dating life side, right, is stop being in your head sometimes. Like, just go with how you feel, in the sense of, when you're in the presence of a man, if you're on a date, for example, right, do you feel safe? Like, you can't,
Mhm.
there's nothing that it's a feeling. To your point, like, our bodies are smarter, honestly, sometimes, in our brain, that you'll feel things in your gut and you'll feel things in your body, right? Like, don't wait for physical evidence. Don't wait for the shoe to drop for you to run if you need to, or like, stop finding bad things, like seeking bad things to kind of write this person off, when you genuinely do feel safe in their presence. So, like, going with how you feel, I think, as a woman, is so important. And it kind of transferring a little bit over about, like, the feminine energy now, right? So, why do you think it's so important to have women embrace their feminine energy, not only in themselves but in others? And I want to also tie this into kind of the mean girls, right, that we see, and the quote cattiness that we see in girls, especially, I would say, I mean, it runs everywhere, right? But every time you throw in a bunch of women, especially in high density cities, like metropolitan cities, or more competitive patriarch environments, you see women becoming more competitive with another, not just in a fighting for their defined masculine or male partner, right? You see a lot of that, but also in a corporate setting or in a work setting, right? And we don't have to get into why exactly these don't work out, but would love to hear your ladies' view when it comes to confidence and embracing your defined feminine, why that is so important to prevent cattiness, to prevent mean girl system, and why it's actually more self-serving for every woman to embrace this divine feminine.
Okay, well, I think one thing about the divine feminine and the divine masculine is love, which is infinite.
Yeah.
And I think people are acting in ways we're speaking of right now and describing. It's coming from a space of scarcity. And there's a woman that I highly recommend listening to her podcasts and books. Her name's Alison Armstrong, and she studies women and men and relationships. And she talks a lot about, us coming from cavemen and our evolution, and how we still have within our DNA these feelings of women, like men are our protection, and to have a man was protecting your house, making sure you had the hunt coming in, you were protected from a tiger. So sometimes I know, like, we probably all had this feeling before, like that initial like heart drop or gut punch, where you feel it all in your body because you're feeling like almost like I'm about to die. Like, I just saw a boy I like kissing another girl, and like you feel that feeling in your body, but this is like still old DNA, like caveman things. So our goal and what we're doing as a planet now, and just sharing and speaking, is like evolving our consciousness and being able to evolve past those initial bodily feelings, which are so important to feel into how our body feels, and then be able to process that with like exuberant amounts of love and tenderness and softness and unconditionality. And I think the sister wound is something really, really, really pervasive on our planet, and it's healing the sister wound. That is the feminine rising, that is the goddess rising. So it's like as simple as being in this beautiful house in Ibiza with all of you guys, and we're getting dressed in the morning, like, oh, wear my bathing suit. Oh my gosh, you look like, sharing dresses and like celebrating each other's beauty. There's no like competition of it. We're all just so unique.
Yeah.
And there's also something to be said for respect and awareness of energy containers and communication between women. And a lot of this has been surfacing this week with all of these amazing, beautiful people around. It's like actually being able to drop in and consciously relate and connect and verbally check in with whether it's your male partners or your female partners, and calling everyone partners because we're all in relation to each other and we're all family, trying to create this divine family on the planet. I think sisters sticking together and really healing that wound is what really helps us rise up. And also wanting to point out that, if you are finding yourself in a situation with a sister where things might be like triggering or a reflection from another feminine, it's still patriarchal and masculine things that have even put us in the same thought processes that we are competition with each other.
Right.
That's not of us.
Yeah.
Love
that.
Beautiful. And a great example is you inviting us on this podcast, work that Kelsey is doing, supporting artists like myself, trying to get going and sharing their work more publicly for the first time, with the work that you're doing with NFTs, and just really inviting each other into each other's corners and spaces, and musing with each other, calling in the divine muses for each other and with each other, and all of our resources, bringing each other in so we can transcend and evolve past some of this old kind of outdated primal DNA that Kelsey so poignantly mentioned. And and of course healing the divine masculine in ourselves as well, not totally losing our own directive and ability to set a course and follow through, but like being more of the embodied dancer. And I mean that literally and metaphorically. I am a dancer and a vocalist, so as well, even when I'm singing, I feel like I'm dancing with my voice, and by that it's flowing around the frequencies that you feel are already in the field, or are channeling from other realms, and moving with that and through that and allowing it to come through you. And this embodies and ripples out like a fractal in all aspects of life, whether it's how you make your food, something as universal and primal as that, or how you set your business meetings if you have them, or how you go about creating your art, or speaking with your children, or speaking with other men and women. There's more room for grace. And I mean that not simply as what sometimes the word grace is considered, just very good manners and things like this, but grace being more of that ineffable and intangible essence of what's sacred, and what's flowing, and what interconnects all things and beings throughout space, time, and all dimensions. And so just really surfing and dancing through the interconnectivity of everything, so that there's always time and space, and there doesn't have to be this push or this rigid structure as much. Perhaps the old paradigm model of being has been sold to us so firmly.
And I think a lot of people, especially through COVID, right, has reflected that maybe my rigid schedule of going to the office at 7:30 a.m. and clocking, everyone's somatic way of processing information, when food digests better is so different, and whatnot. Like my mornings may be more productive than you, right? You might be more of a night owl. Who are we to say? But I think this last year, and obviously this year as well, has made people realize, like, listen to your body, and like maybe we don't need to live in this rigid flow of things. Like, of course there are deadlines, right? Meet your deadlines, but how you go about your deadlines, maybe we could be a little bit more flexible, right? Maybe it's more productive when we let someone take an hour break at noon to go to the gym, and they work a little bit later at night. Like, as long as things get done, right? Like, to your point, there has to be balance between the focus, that masculine focus, but we can be a little bit more graceful at how we do all this stuff. I think, Moon, you mentioned a really good point about the idea of love versus lack of scarcity, right? Like, I think when we see a lot of women in the cattiness element, like there's a thought of limited men or limited opportunities or all things limited. When if you look around, especially metropolitan cities, I joke around, but I see some of these girls like fighting over the same guys, and with all due respect, they're quite similar, right? They all work in the same job. They all kind of look a certain way. They all like dress quite similar. And I joke around, obviously they're very different, unique beings, but you have sometimes a girl or a group of girls so focused on one man and everyone's focused on this one guy, when there's literally a world of abundance, right? So I think that's something that I feel women can be a little bit more open about. And also the idea of we are all so unique that there really is no competition, right? Like what's meant for you, what's for you will be yours if you're honestly embracing yourself. And to your point, Chelsea, about, you know, like doing this podcast, whether it be Moon, you know, helping a lot of our artists get their art on a platform like NFTs and helping you guys grow your abundance, right? Or when you and I came together, we kind of spoke with a bunch of girls thinking about what are your unique gifts, how we can kind of come together and build, whether it be projects together, grow financial abundance together, right? It just reminds me of when you two, right, Chelsea, especially you, because you sing and you dance quite, I feel like professionally, right? The way you guys harmonize, right? Like when we got together in a group and people just start playing a drum and start singing whatnot, it was just, people just kind of knew how to flow in the melody and there was no planning, right?
Yeah.
Everyone went with it. And it always sounded better in a group, harmonized, right? One person had a beautiful voice, but it always sounded better when everyone kind of weaved their way in, right? And there's like some super awkward times where someone tried to like overpower, overshadow, be a little bit too loud, or try to change tunes. It just felt off. So it kind of goes back to the idea of everyone has a unique place and gift, and it's so much more beautiful, and beautiful masterpieces are created when you kind of weave and find a way together. So I do urge a lot women to look at the way how guys operate, right? How do they grow success? How do they build their businesses? They all invest in each other. They all work together, right? It's like a bros club. I mean, do we blame them? It works, right?
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that? We're too busy like shouting at each other. We're too busy competing each other. We're too busy like being passive aggressive with each other. Why not just work with each other, right? It's worked with them, right? Let's just follow what works. So,
Exactly.
right? That's just kind of my little spiel there. But you guys also mentioned, let's talk about sexuality and sensuality, right? Because obviously that's super feminine and divine. So ladies, I kind of mentioned it, right? Like I am definitely someone who am slowly being more comfortable in embracing my sensuality, sexuality. But how do you guys think about it? I mean, I feel like for you ladies, like even like, for example, in American society, right? If you wear certain outfits, it's deemed so revealing and it's sexual, right? But when we were all in Ibiza that week, we were all wearing bikinis and like Burning Man wear, and it wasn't sexual. It was very feminine and it was very sensual, and I felt like it was extremely classy. It was just very natural. So how do you guys think about sensuality, sexuality? How have you embraced it?
You know, I think sexuality is so beautiful. I love creativity, and it's your creative energy and your like divine, like unique blueprint of God of how you express that. And I believe it's so sacred. And there's a difference between, you know, there's sexuality in like the act of it, but it's how you're expressing that, what you're wearing, and going to like spending time in Ibiza, which is a place in the world where it's legal to be fully naked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being an American coming here, and, you know, and there's just people walking around naked, and it actually does not feel awkward or inappropriate or anything, because the energy of this space is set up in such a way that is like respectful. And sometimes in America, I don't wear certain things in certain places because I know what's going to happen if I do. And that's like such a shame, because there's the divine feminine feeling of safety of the divine masculine. There's not safe divine masculine in that area. Mm-hmm. We can for Ibiza here, and our like personal trip of like, when you're able to walk around and be your beautiful self and beam your beauty out and not be afraid of being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
shamed or judged or anything. And like, I don't know that there's a more beautiful thing on the planet than a female body. You know, it's like referred to as the crown of creation for a while. Like in the Christian tradition, Eve was the last creation that God made. Because yeah, like it is good. And we're the world is like, it's been such a joy, both of you, like just seeing you guys walk around in your full beauty all the time. It's like we've just been saying, wow, we're in heaven, because there's so much beautiful expressions happening. So we get to freely express ourselves. And the platform that I'm creating, that's for like visionary art and creative art into the future, it really is based on three pillars of support that I believe every single human being should rock out with. And that is just like your freedom of self-expression, your sacred sexuality, and like respecting the indigenous wisdom of the original peoples and plants of our planet. And if you can work with these three pillars and like really feel so secure, like, man, sexuality is so complex, because we could get into trauma and layers and all of these things. But I think ultimately it's just when you feel most beautiful, but sovereign. It's beautiful from the inside. It's not beautiful because of the reflections I'm getting and all the compliments I'm getting, and I'm putting my like leaky sexual energy out there to see what I can deduce.
Yeah.
You know, because that's also out of balance feminine, where we're using our sexual energy to get other things. And there's just honorable ways and responsible, I think, you know, the ability to respond, to use this energy that is power. This is the creative force. This is how we all are here, is from two people coming together and making love and an orgasm and all of those like magnetic feelings. And it's sacred.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Chelsea, what do you think?
Yeah. So in the polarities of sexual energy, there's more of the magnetic feminine and the electric masculine. And together, you know, we form sacred circuits of energy that balance each other in this way. And so to really operate from a true, healthy, feminine sensuality and sexuality is to feel really good and turned on by your own energy, by your own sense of how much you love and care for yourself, how nurtured you feel from within, and that really just illuminates and radiates without. And that's naturally magnetic to a healthy masculine. And in the past and currently still in places, you see more of a kind of distorted masculine approach for some women in their sexuality, where it's all outside going in versus inside just radiating out from the center, where it's about this very superficial means of trying to lure or seduce. And that's actually a very it's a very mental way of going about it. It's actually kind of a distorted way of going about it, versus just feeling so delicious in your own energy, because you're literally the child of the goddess. You literally are an avatar of the goddess of all of creation, and just feeling absolutely amazing in that is something that you don't need to mentalize or calculate, you know, trying to like get a man. That just becomes totally irrelevant, because you know that you literally are a divine magnetic universe that attracts literally everyone and everything that is beautifully aligned for you.
100%. That's why I tell a lot of friends or like clients that I work on the life coaching side that the type of men you go for as a woman, and if you're heterosexual, right, the type of man you go for or you always attract, take a look at your energy, right? Because if it's one or two chances off cases, of course, if you are a magnetic woman, you're a beautiful woman, and to your exact point, I love the way you put it, Chelsea, it's from the outside in, and it's not cheesy, because you can tell the difference between a woman who's genuinely in love with herself and therefore she's beautiful on the outside versus a woman who is doing it, caking on certain types of makeup, wearing certain things, and it is actually empty on the inside. And she unfortunately doesn't love herself enough that she needs to feed the missing holes inside from the outside world, right? So I always say, like, take a look at what you attract. And if you always have the same pattern of what you attract or what you go for, right? There's probably some inner work you need to work on as a woman. And to your exact point, Chelsea, when you are whole and in love with yourself and all, I love how you say it, the deliciousness, you will
Yeah.
naturally attract the right people that are aligned with you. And
Mhm.
don't worry. And another thing I see a lot of women get so obsessed about is like, oh, why is he not into me? Like everyone should be into me. A lot of people are still effed up. Okay. A lot of people are still lost. You probably don't want to attract everyone. Let's be clear, right? You should be very selective because ultimately, I mean, different types of fluid relationships, but for those who want to be with one partner and get married and, the more traditional way, you probably just want to settle down with one person, right? 99% of the time, it's not going to work out. And you don't want 99% of them anyway. So just focus on being magnetic, delicious within yourself, and you're going to pull it. I'll never forget when I first met Moon. We were talking about, I was trying to get a drink at the bar. When we first met, I was like, oh my God, I just want to get at the bar. Like, again, masculine energy. I'm always trying to just get things done myself. And then, remember what you said to me, Moon? What did you say?
I probably said something like, I'm not going to go buy myself a drink. I'm going to go get someone to buy me one.
Well, even more, yes, but even more fun. You're just like, oh, I just get drinks. She was like, I just come to me. It was so funny. I was like, she's right. She's absolutely right. But that was our first time we met. I was like, wow, this girl's got some confidence. I love this girl. But again, right? Attract. That's all you really need to do. So, and I know you guys want to, so go ahead.
It's fun to start playing with that energy of attraction.
Yeah.
And I want to like almost like walk this out a little bit because it's amazing when we're speaking about embodying and feeling into and like ways you can feel like your energy is coming out of you in like toroidal field, and you can have it going out like this, and then you can have it coming back in. So every time I feel like anxious or I'm like needing to reach outside of myself for something, I'll witness that happening. And then I'll take like some really deep breaths and usually put my hand on my heart and just try to pull my energy source like back inside. And it's when it's within you that you start attracting. So you'll know if you're doing it right, if you witness yourself becoming a magnet, like we're referring to this analogy, because that is how it works. We do live in a polar planet with a North and South Pole, and male and female are polarities. So it is this push and pull, give and take. It's fun. It's fun to practice and play around with and kind of see how it materializes, because we're talking about energy then made manifest in like physical actions in the world around you. So it's a nice little practice thing to do.
Yeah. So there's some weekend activities for the audience. And perfect timing too, right? So we just had the equinox, and I'm learning from you ladies that it is the balance of both feminine and masculine energy. And it's obviously super important and timely for a conversation. Also, another timely thing is I didn't have an update you guys, but I lost my voice this weekend. Lost it. And I think it was in the moment of losing your voice that I realized, and I think Moon, you were saying it earlier, the importance of using your voice and having a voice. That again, everything comes in divine timing. I'm so glad we're doing this today. We're supposed to do it last week, and I actually lost my voice last week. So again, everything into divine timing. I'm able to kind of share my thoughts on it, my truths. But the importance of using your voice, especially as a feminine or masculine, but able to share your voice from a more feminine energy as well. So want to hear your thoughts on equinox, the balance between masculine and feminine. How is that important during this time? And I know you guys also mentioned reclaiming union with the earth, right? So is this also part of the equinox? Chelsea, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So the equinox is essentially, we're right between the seasons, right? We're transitioning into the fall, and whether or not we experience that in our geographic location, in the seasons dramatically shifting, 'cause some of us live at times in tropical places or whatnot, we feel it within because we're still tied to the overarching cycles of the cosmos and the earth. So we'll feel this shift in our bodies really deeply and somatically. I've experienced this whether or not I was living in a visually transitional seasonal place. And to really honor that shift from a more outward expressive energy of the spring and summer seasons where, if you think about the earth, like the fruit is ripe and the harvest is there. Or with some of our gifts, like as an artist, certain streams of energy, it's more natural to share outwards a lot, whether it's like in a live performance space or a jam, like some of the ones we got to all experience together, which was so powerful and amazing to be freestyling and harmonizing and singing and channeling, giving a lot of energy in that way, like the ripe harvest and the abundance. And now at the equinox is sort of the final harvest, but more from the fruits of the deeper earth rather than the higher earth, the canopy of the trees and things like this. So if you can think of that metaphorically and then realize and tune in that, oh, actually, I really feel that in my body. And we actually, especially as women, men too, but women have the ability with our intuition, our divine feminine ability to intuit the way that more often than not men aren't able to tap into that ability as profoundly. We start to actually feel somatically, wow, I'm starting to feel called to like spend more time going inwards with myself, more silence, taking more spaciousness. The leaves might, depending on where you live, start actually falling from the trees as well to make space and spaciousness for the upcoming seasons, fresh fruits and fresh harvests. So this is like the big kind of blowout, if you will, of the final like big harvest of celebration, but tuning in more from what's coming up from the earth. Whereas the last, 2 seasons we've been harvesting from above, and as well like with the voice and dancing and really wanting to express and like super vibrant, flowers bursting of energy like this. And now we start to quiet and settle in ourselves, and honoring that can be really important in order to prevent burnout. We have a lot of people who are very adrenally fatigued in our society because it's all based on this kind of every day is the same energy, and therefore you must produce and perform and express the same every day. But we're actually very cyclical creatures, us women, and the planet is very cyclical. And even I can speak for myself right now, I'm actually currently in what's called the luteal phase of my cycle. So it's the days upcoming before my bleed. And I'm feeling very inward and very quiet. Actually, I spent the entire day in meditation in order to balance being able to express and give on this podcast. And I so loved and appreciated getting to share with you in the weeks where I was more in my
Yeah.
passionate, like singing all the time, dancing all the time. Talk to you is just bursting forth from me, and like this, and honoring that neither is better or worse than the other. That will literally heal so much in the world, because that fractal out in all structures of our society. We really need to honor the feminine cycles of our bodies and the planet in order to support each other. And this ties in with you talking about, women supporting each other in business and art and all these things, because we understand each other if we all get on the same page versus trying to always fit into a masculine model of doing business or creating art. We can work with each other's cycles and flows and support life itself rather than forcing each other to perform and produce. So I really see that being where the world needs to be shifting fully into,
Mm.
in the here and now. And, whether it's, if you're in the corporate world, totally honoring, okay, well, the board meeting is going to need to not be during this week or this week and a half because this is my luteal phase or my bleeding time. And, certain ancient societies used to know, oh, of course, that's a holy time for women to take space for themselves. Of course, you shouldn't be even doing housework or taking care of the children. Of course, like it was this natural cyclical way of life.
Mhm.
And then when women had more energy, they would, be more integrative with outward offerings. And so I think if we can come back into harmony with the fact that every single day is a different point in the cycle of life for all of us women, which is actually the majority of the human race. And yet we don't acknowledge this. We don't acknowledge the fact that the majority of the human race is not biologically designed to, produce and perform, like go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And so much of this excess and greed and kind of unnecessary rigidity would really just dissolve and go away if we honored these cleansing times and these letting go times. You can think about the leaves falling off the tree, or financially just taking those times to be grateful for what you have rather than push, 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 grow, grow, grow like this. And we would, all aspects of society and business would be in harmony if we really attuned deeply to what the earth teaches us symbolically in every day of the year and every season and cycle.
I love that. Moon, do you want to add anything about the equinox?
Yeah, I would love to add, her speaking of the moon and bringing up blood.
Yeah.
I think one thing to really come into feminine embodiment and practice is, like, first of all, just connecting with the moon. Something that's simple, like, as a woman, your cycle, like, we literally are synced up with the moon. And so you can start recognizing each month when you receive, like, your sacred moon time, what phase is the moon in? And more times than not, you might recognize that you're receiving your moon either on the full moon or the new moon. That's the, like, syncing.
Yeah.
And if the feeling of, like, speaking of, like, period blood makes you feel like queasy or disgusted, that might even be like a notion how deeply, like, patriarchal society has made us to feel ashamed of this.
Yeah.
Because as she was speaking to, in ancient times, there's, like, the sacred red tent that all the women go in when you're on your moon. And it wasn't like a punishment of, like, oh, you guys have to go be over there because you're gross. Yeah, right. What do you think we were doing inside that beautiful tent with all of these women, like, doing exactly what we like to do in the bathrooms at all the clubs? We're there, we're talking, we're relating, relaxing, probably sharing so much beautiful oils and flowers and sensual healing things. And so I just love really, like, honoring my blood.
Yeah.
And practically, I do want to speak about, like Diva cups. I started working a few years ago with a Diva cup instead of tampons, and thinking of this because of our planet and because of not sustainability. We're beyond needing to be sustainable at this point. We need to be regenerative. So there's these practices that we can do as women that actually, like, tampons in general do create a lot of waste, and then, but I know how it is as a girl, where, like, at first thinking, like, a diva, what, a cup for what? And what am I going to do with that? But I'm also, like, a moon dancer out of Mexico. And so I I pray and dance ceremoniously with an indigenous lineage out of Mexico. And I'm coming up on my 4-year mark next full moon. So we dance with the full moon of every October. And a few things that this lineage of abuelas teach and pass down from the indigenous culture to all the women, we're there praying for our wombs. And we work with sacred water and we work with blood. And it really is about just how sacred this creative force inside of you is. That's a womb, and being able to honor that and acknowledge you as like the seed of creation, and that blood as sacred.
Mhm.
And there's so many mysteries to go into. With that being said, I just wanted to bring that forward, and thank you.
I love that. Well, ladies, I want to wrap up with one for each of you, right? So I'm always big on like practical like solutions. What are some people actionable steps they could take, right? So why don't we start with Chelsea? How can people, men or women, better, if there's one thing they can do to better embrace their divine feminine, what would it be?
I would say getting in the body, getting deeply in the body, and as well connecting to the earth, like dancing barefoot in a beautiful place in nature with other women would be amazing. And also then when someone is comfortable or even a little bit outside of their, comfort zone, as well, allowing yourself to be witnessed by your brothers, by the men around you, and allowing yourself to be seen in your inner feeling expressed outward in your radiance, and having that reflected back to you is going to slowly build more safety if maybe you haven't experienced that. And really good containers for this are ecstatic dance. If you look up, which is all outside, but there's a whole network around the world of ecstatic dances where it's a sober dance space, but people are safe to drop really deeply into their expression. It's a movement meditation. If anyone isn't familiar with this already, I highly recommend it. I've previously hosted ecstatic dances as well. And I'm really big on encouraging people and initiating people into that world if they haven't heard of it already. And as well, having a toning practice to really liberate the throat chakra and connected to the heart with the lungs, because one of the deepest collective feminine wounds is the fact that we were silenced, and oftentimes very violently, throughout past lifetimes, ancestrally, which for many people is carried epigenetically through the DNA, that we have an opportunity to clear for our whole family line in this lifetime. So whether that's with these embodied somatic release process like dancing, singing, toning, you can go through all the different notes and just tone it from a full breath of air, and just like let that whole note be expressed unbroken, and do each one. And it's really like a massage and a somatic liberation for any stuck trauma that might be in the throat chakra or in the heart, in the lungs. And that's going to really open us up to each other and to our divine gifts, our ability to express and to channel, which is a very feminine essence. It's going to open up our intuition, because this is actually the root of intuition is from this energetic center as well. And that's a deep feminine gift that is part of the great mysteries of feminine energy. And so, yeah, I would just encourage people to really get into their voice and their body, and just every day, as part of your self-love, self-care ritual. And then that's going to just magnify out into your life as more confidence, more natural radiance. So you can let go of more of the mental ideas of, oh, this is how I have to act, and this is how the costume I have to wear, very mental ideas of being attractive or feminine. Like just letting all of that go as people like take the baby steps into trusting their own natural essence and channel and deliciousness more and more, in just letting go of all of the mind, just clearing, letting go, and keeping it open and clear.
Love that. And then Moon, how can people, men and women, better embrace their divine masculine?
Well, um, it's the same answer that I was going to give if you asked me for divine feminine, because I think all of it comes to, as Chelsea was saying, embodiment
Yeah.
and ritual. And ritual is something that connects us with spirit. We're matter and spirit combined. Having a daily ritual that connects you with the earth. And by the earth, I will go forth and say the elements. And we have these 4 sacred elements that are medicines on this planet: fire, air, earth, and water. And water is feminine and seen as feminine. So my answer was going to be, water prayers, really connecting with your water to get in touch with your feminine and your emotion and the waters of your being. Fire is what we love to ascribe masculine qualities to. Although I love feminine fire, it's all of it. But I would say, fire energy and earth energy. And what does a ritual with fire look like? Well, it could be literally lighting a candle and having a moment of reflection, but it could also be, martial arts and screaming and, passion, releasing anger, a lot of yoga, hot yoga. So I think also our masculine, I think of that as discipline, and logic and structure. So that's something that I work on a lot. I love to flow femininely. But I think structure and fire and ultimately just ritual with the elements and connection with earth. Because yes, she's feminine and nurturing and feeding us so much, but there's so many masculine qualities of earth too. You think of a mountain of all, and you'll know which ones are masculine because they'll start turning you on. You're like, oh, mountains are sexy. Volcanoes are sexy. What else? It's masculine.
I love it. Well, ladies, thank you so much. Honestly, I think obviously people are going to benefit from this. For those that are super new to all this, are probably like, wow, whole new world to read into, get into. Those that are newer, those that have a better understanding of it probably resonate with some new points you guys mentioned. But I always wrap up with, I think every person has a gift. And when you use your gift, you can really help, magnetize, make this community a much better place. So Chelsea, why don't we start with you? What is your unique gift?
Well, what I have come to synthesize is being the channel. And in the trinity of my work, that's with singing and dancing, and as well with plant medicines. And together, being able to create ceremonial containers for opening the divine channel. And these are very authentic states of being, not pushing it or forcing it, but just being receptive, being in this really feminine and receptive place where, and actually you can even tie it into what Moon said. The more you show up or even create, you could schedule it for yourself. The more you commit and show up for yourself to be in these very flowing, receptive states and these embodied practices, whether it's, in a ceremony with a plant medicine or, in a dance ritual, or in a vocal practice, or combining all of the above, which is really what I'm synthesizing in this life, to be able to create these containers where all the channels can be open in a very safe and held structure. So that balance where people can really let go and feel the sacred defined edges around them so that they can totally surrender into opening their voice or receiving voice and receiving, the mirror of a divine feminine channel embodied, and witness that in themselves, and then start to be moved by it, and it becomes a shared field of Shakti or of divine feminine energy. So we have a guest coming in.
Yes, all good.
Yeah. Yeah, so just marrying in the commitment and I like to say bliss discipline more than discipline.
Nice. Yeah.
I
Yes.
like that. Okay, okay. And Moon, how about you? What's your unique gift?
Um, this is an amazing question. So I feel so incredibly gifted with the ability to unconditionally love and feel and have empathy.
Mm,
And it's so beautiful to, these are gifts, like feeling these gifts, unconditional love. I feel so grateful to receive and then be able to reflect and the gift of creativity. And so I'm an artist and a poet and a painter and a writer and a video maker and editor, create NFTs and digital art. And I create everything, create sacred spaces, like all creation. And I've been this way my whole life. And the point is this, because I'm trying to create heaven and I'm trying to recreate heaven and I'm trying to paint a painting of heaven. So when you look at it, you remember, and creating visions for humanity to ascend towards and to inspire is my gift, is being able to inspire ideas. And if I can inspire you to heal, if I can inspire you to create, if I can inspire you to create beauty, I believe beauty will save the world. So I dedicate my life to creating beauty and creating sacred, safe spaces and containers where beauty can be birthed. And all of this in really, really deep compassion and reverence for the heavier, darker, denser experiences that are going on our planet, with war. I want to live on a planet of peace, and so I want to create peace. So that's my dream and my gift, and all of our dreams and our gifts is
she might have said it better than me.
No, I love it. No, honestly, it's awesome. Well,
Yeah, that's fine.
World Peace Day. We're meeting
Yes.
today on the equinox, and yesterday was World Peace Day. And this is what we're all here for. And I feel what we're all born for is to come and create and just bring heaven to earth. And I could go on for
no, I love it. You ladies are literally like the embodiment of heaven on earth. Like the way you move, the way you speak, like just your thoughts, all of it. So thank you, ladies, so much. I'm getting chills. Enjoy the rest of Ibiza. And I'm sure I'll see you back in the motherland.
Yes. Okay. Love you, Jessica. Thank you so much.
Of course. Have a good one. Bye, loves.
Bye.